We recording? Alright. Welcome to the inaugural episode of The Wizard Staff. My name is Guy.
And I'm Blake.
And we are here to talk about Commander. So, you've probably never heard of us before, me and Blake, but we're pretty much novices when it comes to Magic. We've only been playing for maybe a year.
Yeah.
But we're really good friends. We've been friends for like 7 years. We've played Yu-Gi-Oh! For a majority of that. We then started playing Magic, and we've kept in touch over the years because I've moved away. We're on opposite ends of the country at the moment. So we have regular Skype weekly sessions, and probably within the last 2 to 3 months we've noticed that we've just been talking about Magic for most of the part, so we decided why not start a Magic podcast. You know, how hard could that be?
Easy. And
even within these first few weeks of trying to like set up all of this shit, it's been so hard.
It's been flawless. What are you talking about? It's so easy.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I've said, Blake and I have been friends since high school. We met as sophomores. We've run cross country. We've played Yu-Gi-Oh! And that was a shit show. And so, Blake, do you want to talk a little bit about how, you got us into this endeavor that we call Magic the Gathering?
Yeah. We played Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout high school. We started getting back into it, and even
during lunch
specifically,
lunch,
we'd always play. And then as time went on, we got more and more serious about it, and we started building better decks. But then I kind of came to the conclusion that I didn't really like the game anymore. It was too fast-paced. It would often end on turn 2 or 3, and it just wasn't what I was looking for anymore. It wasn't interactive. It wasn't really that much fun. It wasn't really a social thing. It would be over in 5 or 7 minutes.
Yeah, it definitely got into a point where the plays were too consistent, where you play the same card to win the game, and once you play that card, it's over. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is pretty much done by then.
And everyone has different definitions of fun. Some people might like that, but for us personally, we kind of got tired of it. We wanted some more variety and some more spice. And so in my second year of college, my friend Dylan introduced me to this card game called Magic, and I'd always kind of heard of it, but I was like, I don't know, I've always done Yu-Gi-Oh! What's this other weird card game? And so he told me to just go online, go on to Gatherer, and find what was called a commander, and just find one that I connected with. And I knew nothing about the game whatsoever, not that I really do now, but he had me just look through all the different possible commanders, and I eventually found one, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, and for those who are listening in and you're not sure what the commander means, but in our format of Magic, we pick one legendary creature specifically, and that we register as our commander, and then we build a deck of 100 cards around that commander and their mechanic.
And we'll probably make another episode explaining that, and in a very interesting and fun iteration.
Oh, you better tune in for when that happens,
Looking forward to that. And so I then later on, once I was getting into the format, I decided to try and get my best friend into it, because he too, Guy, you kind of got tired of the game too, and so I sent you the pre-con 2017 commander deck.
Yeah, I remember getting that in the mail and looking at it being like, what the hell is this? But I also remember just getting so frustrated with the price of Yu-Gi-Oh! I would buy cards that were way more expensive than they should have been, only for them to get reprinted 3 months later. Price drops. I hate myself. I've wasted so much money on Yu-Gi-Oh! Whereas Magic has kind of been the opposite, where some of my cards have gone up in value, and I feel a little better about the investment that I've been making.
Yeah, we've learned a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's only been a year.
We still spent too much money on it, probably. Oh well.
Tomato, whatever.
Okay. Yeah, so we're both still pretty new to this, and
we just wanted to make a podcast that kind of, for all the people out there who are kind of getting into the format of Commander, you know, we don't know everything, so if we happen to say something and you're like, well, you guys, that's actually wrong, you guys are being stupid pieces of shit, well, thank you, but we do appreciate any kind of, you know, help along the way, or just kind of constructive criticism. You know, don't call us stupid pieces of shit, but anything to help us learn better, and then anything to help other people learn better is greatly appreciated. So today, on our first episode, we are going to talk about our favorite decks and also our favorite beers, because as the title mentioned, which credit goes to Blake for coming up with the title, it was kind of genius. It was like kind of a duh, this is what it should be. But so we are the Wizard Staff, which for those who don't know what that is, that's just a large line of beer cans that you tape together, and then you get like a wizard staff out of it. So we're drinking our favorite beers. We'll be drinking almost every show for the most part, you know, kind of separate us from the crowd. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about our favorite decks.
Alright. So
Blake, why don't you start with your favorite beer and, you know, kind of talk about some of your decks.
Yep, sure. So right now I'm drinking what's called Rolling Rock, and it's pretty popular where I used to go to college. And so I brought a case with me back, and I'm drinking it now. So I'm going to talk about my favorite commander. It's the commander I chose when my friend showed me Gather.com, and I was scrolling through all of the various commanders I could choose. And I saw this one card, and it's called Una, Queen of the Fae. And it costs 3 colorless and 3 hybrid Dimir, so you can pay either blue or black. And it's a 5/5 fairy wizard with flying, and it has...
I like how fairy is spelled differently than like you commonly see it. I've never really noticed that until now.
Really? Oh my god.
Yeah. See, that is, again, this just shows how much of novices we are at Magic.
Okay. And then she has an activated ability, which I think is really cool. It's X and a hybrid Dimir. Choose a color. Target opponent removes the top X cards of his or her library from the game. For each card of the chosen color removed this way, put a 1/1 blue and black fairy rogue creature token with flying into play. So there's a lot of things I like about this card. First off, I love the art by Adam Rex. The CMC of 6 isn't actually that bad because of how flexible it is. It's pretty easy to generate colorless mana, and then the hybrid Dimir make it even easier to cast her for a 5/5 body with flying. And so it's great that way. And I read the activated ability where you just exile, and I remember from Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, that's basically banishing, and I thought that ability was incredible.
And now, Blake, this wasn't also your first deck. You had another deck before, kind of explaining a deck that you had that kind of got you into the game, and it was kind of like a introduction deck rather than, you know, your first real deck where you built all of it. Didn't you have some of your friends help you build your first deck?
maybe I haven't explained this to you, but this is actually my very first deck I ever built. I like bought her. Like, I know what deck you're thinking of, but like this is actually the first deck I made.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Sorry. Yeah. So it's like so iconic.
So during this episode, we're also going to talk about our favorite decks, kind of the structure that we built for this deck, and then kind of go into some of our, like, I think we have top 8 or 9 cards for what's in our decks.
Yep. So, really quickly, now that I've explained Una, there's like 4 different versions of her. You can either build her, there might be more, but these are the ones I've seen. You can either build her Fairy Tribal, where you just have a bunch of fairy creatures and just try and do that. And then there's Mill, where you just try and get rid of your opponent's libraries and win the game that way. There's Semi-Competitive, which tries to win like turn 5 or 6 through combo. And then there's Competitive, which tries to win like turn 3 through 4. And so I chose to build Una. I've built her like a few different ways. I've built them almost all of those ways. And I personally find Mill to be the most fun and engaging. It just leads to a lot more interaction, and while also you don't always win, but you don't always lose. You can politic your way into winning, like if you're just really good at managing that. So the top 8 cards I want to mention right now that I like to make in Mill Una is Dire Undercurrents, and it's an enchantment. And hold on one sec, you can edit this out, I need to look it up real fast. Dire Undercurrents is an enchantment. It costs 3 colorless and 2 hybrid Dimir. It says, whenever a blue creature comes into play under your control, you may have target player draw a card. Whenever a black creature comes into play under your control, you may have target player discard a card. So what you do is you cast this before Una, and then you cast Una, and you're at least drawing 1 card because you're going to target yourself, and you're going to have some opponent, probably the one who's ahead, discarding a card. And then the turn after that, you're probably going to be activating Una, milling someone with her ability, and getting, like, usually, like, 4 fairies. So you're drawing 4 more cards and having 4 more cards discarded by your opponents, and you can split it up however you want. And so it just quickly, like, just to card advantage and gets your opponent, like, kind of starting to worry. You can split it up, though, and be political and, like, kind of, like, not make yourself a threat. That's a lot of what this deck is. You don't want to make yourself a threat. You want to kind of slide under and get the win. The other card that I really like in this deck is Mind Grind. Sorry, guy, you're going to have to edit me between these, looking up these cards. So Mind Grind is a sorcery that costs X, and blue and black. Says each opponent reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals X land cards, then puts all cards revealed this way into his or her graveyard. X cannot be 0. So in this deck, you're going to have a lot of X spells, and you often can create a lot of mana. And so this is kind of like a game finisher. Like, it's late, it's like turn 8 or 9, and people have, like, ramped out and, like, searched for lands, and you can often make X like 10, and just each of your opponents, like, goes down. It's usually a range of like 10 to like 20 cards left, and then you can usually finish them off from there.
And you have a lot of kind of infinite combos in your deck where you're able to, or maybe not infinite, but you have a lot of combos in your deck where you're able to make just a bunch of colorless mana, and then you use that, and then probably Mind Grind to kind of get them to pretty much then mill themselves out.
Yes, there are a couple ways you can make infinite colorless mana and dump it into, like, Una, but if someone gets rid of Una, you can cast Mind Grind instead and still win the game that way. The other card I like is Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger.
And Blake, I actually remember this card very fondly of yours. It was one of the first cards you sent a Snapchat to me saying like, hey look, my first Magic the Gathering card came in the mail, and this was still 8 or 9 months before I even wanted to consider playing Magic. And I was just like, I don't fucking know what this card means. It kind of looks ugly. It's only 10 attack points. Well, Blue Eyes White Dragon has 3,000. So, you're done. You're done. Go home, Blake. Magic the Gathering sucks. Not actually. But, yeah, so why don't you talk a little bit about this card?
Yeah, he's my big boy. I love him. He costs 10 for a 10/10 Eldrazi. And when you cast him, you get to exile 2 target permanents. So it's almost like a sorcery where you just cast it, and you get to do the effect. But then you get a creature on top of it. It's indestructible, which is such a great mechanic. And then but this is the best part, whenever it attacks, the defending player exiles the top 20 cards of his or her library. And ooh, that feels bad. Because...
And it's whenever he attacks, he doesn't have to, like, hit the opponent as well.
And so, like, with Indestructible, it kind of just, like, stays on the board for a while until someone can, like, exile it, or, like, Black Sun Zenith. It sticks to the board, usually. And so this will draw a lot of attention, so you kind of want to do this, like, it costs 10, but, like, you kind of want to do this again, like, nearing the end of the game, where like you've milled people out for a decent amount, and now you're just gonna swipe them away. Exile.
Yeah, this definitely makes you a target on the field, Blake.
Yeah.
So, but you know, what's a little Magic without kind of some friendly competition?
Yeah, this one draws a bit of hate, so you got to be a bit careful as to when you play it. Alright, the other card I want to talk about real quickly is District Sacrament. It costs 3 black to cast. It's a sorcery with kicker 7. So each search target player's library for up to 3 cards. Exile them. Then that player shuffles his or her library. The Sadistic Sacrament was kicked. Instead, search that player's library for up to 15 cards. Exile them. Then that player shuffles his or her library. So you can pay 3 to exile 3 cards from an opponent's library, or you can pay 10 to exile 15. So this is great because you can either play it early game and get rid of cards that you know are in your opponent's deck that you have like no answer in a blue and black deck, like often enchantments or something like that. Or you can play it late game and just exile 15.
So if it is something like the enchantments that you're trying to get rid of, do you often also look for maybe lands or something when you know that they're kind of in a mana screwed late game and you're able to then do the 10 mana? So then maybe you get rid of 15 of their lands and really fuck them over.
Yeah, the best part is when you pay the kicker cost, exile the last like lands in their deck, and then the next turn you play Mind Grind. Because
yeah, that's a dick move.
I've done it.
But you know, if you can do it, do it.
Because they're like, oh, you're getting rid of all my lands. I don't care. I've already put down like 10. It's like I can do like whatever I want. It's like, okay, Mind Grind, like mill the rest of your deck. Oh. This can also get rid of a lot of key cards like game finishers in other decks, like a Craterhoof Behemoth in a green deck. There are actually quite a few decks that rely on like only like 2 or 3 cards to like really finish out the game or whatnot. And so this just completely smokes them out. And they may hate you though, so you got to be a little bit careful as to when you play that.
Right. You don't want to play it too early, but you also don't want to play it too late, where they may then get those cards and you might be fucked by then.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. The last thing I have to say about this is if you're playing with your metagroup and you play this early enough, because you get to look through their library, you're seeing their library, you can see their board, you can see their graveyard, you just don't know what's in their hand. And so by process of elimination, if you like play with your like meta group long enough, you can actually like, and if you're fast mentally enough, you can actually figure out like what's in their hand. Like,
it's kind of like Rain Man.
Yeah.
If you know that
you gotta
movie.
be fast about it though, because like if you like just looking through a EDH deck takes a lot of time, and like wasting any more time to calculate and figure out what's in their hand, like you gotta be fast. But like I said, you can do it. It's often like with a metagroup that you play it so often with. You're like, oh, that's in their hand because I don't see it here or there. All right. Moving on. The next card I want to talk about is Forced Fruition. It's an enchantment that costs 4 colorless, blue, and it says, whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player draws 7 cards. So, this is kind of a double-edged sword, because you play this, and you're hoping that you have milled your opponents enough to where they want to cast spell after spell after spell, and like win the game, but if they do that, they're going to draw out. And so, on the other hand, they could like cast spells and like keep drawing 7 multiple times, and then draw into their win condition. So it's kind of a risky card.
Blake, now, let's say if I had some kind of card that could remove Forced Fruition, would I then still have to draw 7 cards afterwards?
I'd have to check actually, but you're saying like just a spell that says destroy target enchantment.
Right. So if I even wanted to get rid of it, I'd still have to draw the 7 cards.
That's a good question. I don't know. Never had anyone like bother to destroy it. So yeah, this is an example. We're still learning the game. I'm still figuring that out.
We're still, yeah. So if anyone happens to know the answer to that, you will get some really janky prize, just because we have very little money at the moment, because we spend it all on cards. But yeah, if you do happen to know the answer, we would greatly appreciate you commenting down below.
Alright, the next card I want to talk about is Jace's Archivist. It costs 1 colorless, blue, for a Vidalcan Wizard 2/2 that says, blue, tap, each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. And so it's great because it's early game, it's a creature, which this deck doesn't have very many, and so it can act as a early blocker if you need it to. But what's really great about this is a repeatable wheel effect. And this deck is like half mill, like half draw, because if you make pure mill in EDH, that's just not going to get there. But there are actually quite a lot of wheel effects, and that's what really gets you there. And so this can be used multiple times, and because it's like so small, people don't actually think of it as a threat, and they don't actually when they should. It's like, I can go through like 21 cards over 3 rounds, and I mean, it's no threat like Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, but because it's not a huge threat, because it doesn't look scary, it stays on the board way longer than it should, and people undervalue it.
Yeah, I definitely run this also, or at least I used to run this in my Jace Brian's Prodigy deck. I think I ended up taking it out for my competitive version, but it is a very good card. I do agree with you there.
The next card is called Whispering Madness, 2 colorless, blue-black sorcery with Cipher. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. So again, you have a wheel effect, and you can cipher this onto a creature. I often cipher it onto Una. So you can activate Una because it's an activated ability, not a tap. And then you can also hit her into somebody, because she's flying. She'll often connect with someone, and everyone will discard their hand and draw cards again, and it's just like a double whammy, and that's can draw some attention. So you kind of want to like be careful. You can also try and cipher this onto like a smaller creature, like the Jace that I mentioned earlier. But again, it starts making them look like threats, and you gotta be a little bit careful.
Right.
So the very last card that I want to talk about is Rings of Bright Hearth. I think that's how you say it.
I always say Bright Hearth.
Hearth.
Yeah, see, we're kind of stupid.
So, yeah. So it's an artifact that costs 3 colorless, and whenever you play an activated ability, if it isn't a mana ability, you may pay. If it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 2. If you do copy that ability, you may choose new targets for this copy. So there's a lot to say about this card, so I'm going to try and be as concise as possible. You can use this on Una's activated ability, where you copy her exiling effect. You just kind of need to leave open 2 colorless mana to copy it, and it basically can double her exiling effect. This also combos with Basalt Monolith, which is also an artifact. It costs 3, and it taps for mana and untaps for mana.
See, I call it Basalt Monolith, but whatever.
Whoops. Yeah. So you can use that to create infinite colorless and dump it into Una and just exile an entire opponent's library. But I try not to do that unless I have to, because it kind of can make the person feel bad.
Yeah.
Alright, that's all my cards that I have to talk about. Guy, would you like to talk about your deck and beer? No.
No. Yeah, no, I got this. So I chose actually a root beer. So it's not your father's root beer, and it's 6% alcohol content. This thing is delicious. I think it tastes exactly like root beer. And because I actually tend to hate root beer. Probably in future episodes I might actually be drinking more wine than I am beer. So expect me to get a little drunker than Blake.
Yeah, you're much more of a lightweight anyway.
But, oh, that's true too. Blake can drink a lot more than I can, and 2 of these Not Your Father's root beers, which at this point I have drinking, kind of gets me a little dizzy, so oh well. So anyway, Blake mentioned earlier, but my very first deck was one of the precons from 2017. Blake asked me oh, what do you think you wanna, what would you want when playing Magic? And I was like, well, Blue Eyes White Dragon from Yu-Gi-Oh! I'd really like to stick to the dragon theme, and that kind of lined up perfectly with the new Dragon deck, which is 4 colorless and Wooburg. And Wooburg is every single color of mana, so white, blue, black, red, green. And so the Dragon has the ability, as long as the Dragon is in the command zone or on the battlefield, so pretty much there's almost no instance where he's not on one of those. All my dragon spells cost 1 less to cast, which is huge for dragons at least. So I got the precon and I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty fun, but I also was finding that, Wooburg is a very, unless if you're willing to pay the money for the dual lands and some of those really nice lands where you're just able to get very variant colors, it's kind of hard to build. So one of the cards that I added was Skithrix the Blight Dragon, and he I felt was the perfect candidate for my first commander deck. He would be my favorite card. He's like Una is to me. But he's also not the one I'm going to be talking about today. So, but to go over Skithrix a little, he is a 3 black for flying. He has Infect, which deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters, and to players in the form of poison counters. So pretty much once you got 10 poison counters, you die. And in Commander, I found that's not so popular, because people are like, well, you know, I only had 10 damage done to me. I'm dead. And I'm like, yeah, I don't like you playing the game. It's a common theme, I think, in most of my decks, where I enjoy watching people suffer. So that's kind of how I built my decks. But so then Skithrix has black, so I can pay an additional black, and then he gains haste until the end of the turn. So often I don't cast him unless if I can give him haste. And then he also has 2/2 black, 2 black, 2 black is how I should be saying it, for regenerate Skithrix. So if he were to die, he'd come back at the end of the turn instead. So I built him. And I kind of went on with this theme of building monocolored decks as the way that I approach building decks. So I built Skithrix as a mono black deck because he's only black. So then I picked a white commander because I really fell in love with Avacyn, Angel of Hope, who is the commander deck that I would probably say I like playing the most. Even though Skithrix is my favorite card, I sometimes kind of run into some troubles, you know, being infect, and people are like, well, I don't really want to play you if I'm just going to die in 10 damage. And I'm like, alright. So I had to build a second deck, and that was Avacyn, Angel
Which I hate even more.
So, yeah, Blake hasn't beaten my Avacyn, Angel of Hope deck, at least. I'm sure he could with his Una deck, but he also has Sigarda, host of Herons. Yeah, whatever it is. So, alright, Avacyn. She is a legendary creature, angel. She's 5 colorless, white, white, white. So she is quite a big card, to be honest. Yes, she is quite expensive. But she does have 8/8, so kind of makes up for it there. And on top of that, she has flying, vigilance, and indestructible. But not only that, and this is the best part of her, she gives all your other permanents indestructible. Now, if you don't know what indestructible means, that means that cards can't be destroyed by card effects or by battle. So oftentimes, my goal is to get like a really janky board out. I then cast Avacyn, and then the next turn, I just blow up everyone's shit, and they go ballistic.
So do you remember? So do you remember playing her for quite a while, and then me having to explain how powerful Indestructible was to you?
Yeah, I definitely didn't quite understand how Indestructible was. Like, I thought creatures still died from combat, but they don't. And pretty much the only way to counter, or I guess not counter, but to get around Indestructible is to either return creature to my hand, or exile, or -1/-1 counters if it's a creature.
Yeah, or in the very few cards that say bury.
Yeah. So, alright, so here's my top 8 cards. Number 1, Lyra Dawnbringer. This is one of the newer angels from the most recent Dominaria set. And to be honest, I almost love her enough where I would consider switching her out to be a commander. But so she's 3 colorless and a white-white. She has flying, first strike, and lifelink. And then all other angels you control get +1/+1 and have lifelink. And she's a 5/5. So lifelink is the ability to hit someone for damage, and then you gain that life. Or if you hit like a creature, whatever damage you deal, you then gain that life. So I run an angel tribal deck. So this pretty much gives all my angels the added bonus of, if they are indestructible at the time, of having lifelink. So it's kind of like you kill someone's creature, and you're like, fuck you, and then you even take some more life from them. So I would rank Lyra close to like top 5 cards overall. Like probably Skithrix, then probably Avacyn, maybe then Lyra, or this other card that I'm about to mention, which is Platinum Angel. And this card's great. I'm including on here the Masterpiece edition, because I think this art is fucking beautiful. My girlfriend's told me otherwise, Blake's told me otherwise, and I'm just kind of like, nah, I can't. I don't think you guys are right. This card is so sweet, and I really appreciate that I was able to pay $50 for her. And then just recently I learned that she went up to $150, so that's an investment, baby. Anyway, Platinum Angel is 7 colorless. That's all. She has flying. You can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. So fun story, but I was playing in one of my play groups, and someone stole my commander. They took control of it with their commander, and so all of their stuff gained indestructible. And I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna lose soon, because I was already kind of like behind at that point. So I cast Platinum Angel, and I was like, haha, I can't lose. And so next turn, they then decided to steal Platinum Angel instead, and I was like, wait, shit, I didn't think about this. So not only could they not lose the game, but all their stuff was indestructible too. So it's kind of a slap in the face. So the reason why this card is so great is if it does have indestructible at the time, you can't get rid of it. You can't destroy it. You can only exile it, or maybe get the -1/-1 counters. But then I just like to keep it on the field. I never really attack with her unless if she has indestructible, because I don't want to lose the great effect that is I can't lose and my opponents can't win. So Platinum Angel, 10 out of 10.
Hate
super
it.
good card.
Trash.
Shut up. Next card, and this card that I'm about to mention is kind of one of the more unpopular cards in our format, because it promotes one of the most well unliked practices, and that's destroying lands. Armageddon. Now, destroy all lands. That's basic lands, that's legendary lands, that's any land. Destroying lands, especially, like, I've only done this once, but destroying lands by like turn 10, screwing anyone else over, it's the best feeling in the world. As you sit back and watch everyone but yourself, because you have Avacyn out. You don't cast this card unless you have Avacyn, let me mention. So you cast this card, and you're just like, wow, that felt great. Now, a very similar card, which I really like because it was able to give some more consistency in my deck, was Fall of the Thrawn, which is the only Saga card that I have grown a liking to. So the way that Sagas work is that they're enchantments, but they only stay on the field typically for 3 turns. So Fall of the Thrawn is a 5 colorless and 1 white, and its first ability is Destroy All Lands. So again, it's like an Armageddon. But because it has a second and third ability, or then each turn after I cast it, or after I go through my upkeep, each player will then return 2 lands. So it's a little slow for everyone else to kind of like get back to where they are. And if by like turn 10, you're only going to get 4 lands back if you're able to consistently play lands at that point. But this is very similar to Armageddon, where it's just a little worse, as in it costs a little more, and then your opponents are getting their lands back. Ravages of War would probably be the other one, but that's only been printed I think once, and it's a $200 card that I don't feel like paying for, where it's also like destroy all lands. So it's pretty much Armageddon, but it has a little different CMC. I think it's 2 colorless and white, but yeah. Follow the Thrawn, Armageddon. Again, I hate letting other people have fun. That's what I've had most. It was the same in Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's going to be the same in Magic. And if I play Pokemon the card game, well, guess what? Fuck you, Pikachu, because you're dead.
God.
Alright, Land Tax, which would be my next card. Now, bless the lords, that is Magic the Gathering, for recently doing the reprint of Land Tax in the most recent Battle Bond set, where at the beginning it's the much nicer artwork with the chest and the mountains coming out of it. Because let's face it, the original, which is this Danny DeVito looking character who kind of looks just ugly, he's holding up a bag, that just wasn't doing it for anyone. Alright, but so Land Tax, I haven't even explained what it is, and I'm talking about it. Land Tax, it only costs 1 white, so it's already a good card because it's almost at the lowest CMC that you could have, converted mana cost. So at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, reveal them, and then put them into your hand. If you do, shuffle your library. Now, white is good at some things. It's not the best color, it's certainly not probably the most competitive when you're doing just monocolored. And one of the issues that it tends to have is ramp, which is the ability to make sure that you are getting the mana out more than you need by the turn that you're on. So let's say mana ramp would be having 5 mana available to you on turn 3. That's being able to mana ramp. So Land Tax is one of the only white cards that really helps with that. And so it's great because you cast it, oftentimes then if your opponent is able to get like another land or something, you then get 3 into your hand, and then you're able to consistently hit your land drop for a while. You only need this really 2 or 3 times to kind of make it viable, but also it's very important that it has the ability of if an opponent controls more lands than you. Because if you're playing, let's say, in 4, and you have some dickweed somewhere else who was able to get 5 lands out by turn 4, somehow then, when it comes back to you, they have more lands than you, and you're able to get 3 more lands. So, also a very great card. This one doesn't kind of go in the theme of, dicking people over, because it doesn't really hurt anyone else. Unlike this next card, Iona, Shield of Emeria. This is a fantastic card. 6 colorless. White. Angel. Flying. As Iona, Shield of Emeria enters the battlefield, choose a color. Your opponents can't cast spells of the chosen color. This is fantastic. It is the best feeling to cast this card. Because, one, as long as she's out on the field, they're not going to be able to cast the commander. Because your commander is going to have the color, and if I were to say like, oh, hey Blake, you can't cast anything with blue, that shuts down half his deck.
Yeah, it does not feel good. So you like to see people suffer. Do you ever cast Iona against a monocolored deck?
Are you asking me if I would, or have I?
Like, have you?
I have not. Now ask me if I would.
Would you?
Yes, I absolutely would cast this against someone to dick them over. I would respect, because I do know in your playgroup at least that you have the rule for Iona, because Iona is also considered one of the most ban-worthy cards. I do know you've told me in your playgroup that oftentimes if one person is playing a monocolored deck and someone does happen to cast Iona, they're not allowed to then play that color or choose that color. So if, let's say you were playing, so one of my friends is playing a mono blue deck and I cast Iona, can't choose blue because then that shuts one person from out the whole entire game.
Yeah, the worst thing is to play the game and then learn, oh, you're not allowed to play the game. You're just going to have to sit here and watch everyone else play the game.
Yeah. And I can respect that to a degree.
You're here to win,
I mean, I definitely want to have fun, but I also I can get pretty competitive in my mindset where, yeah, I am going to do anything to screw someone over. But also then if the blue player doesn't happen to be in the lead, and it's more like the red-green player for some reason, I don't know, red-green, and I'd just be like, well, I'm going to shut down green for the most part. So, alright, last card, and that is Darksteel Mutation. Now, this is a card that Blake actually introduced me to, and he even used it against my Avacyn one duel. And I was so fucking pissed that I was like, you know what? This is exactly what I need in my deck because it fucks someone over. So I got Darksteel Mutation. It is a 1 colorless, 1 white enchantment aura. So you choose to enchant a creature. The enchanted creature is an insect artifact creature with base power and toughness 0/1 and has indestructible. And it loses all other abilities, card types, and creature types. So let's say you do this to someone's commander. That commander is gone. Unless if you exile it. Or for some reason get a -1 counter on it. So, but, oh wait, no, it does not give the insect artifact creature hexproof. So you could target it with a spell and give it a -1 counter.
There's still a couple ways to get rid of it.
There's
still a couple ways to get rid of it.
Yeah, there definitely are, and as much as I don't want to give away the secrets, but like one of the ways would be to, like, you know, return Darksteel Mutation to owner's hand, exile Darksteel Mutation. There are a few ways that you could get around this, but often when you have Avacyn out and you have Darksteel Mutation, then the enchantment has indestructible, which makes it just a little bit harder. So it's a good time. I do enjoy watching other people suffer.
Well, the creature has indestructible. The enchantment itself doesn't.
No, but I'm saying, like, when Avacyn comes out, then the Darksteel Mutation enchantment will also have indestructible.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So, see, I just taught Blake a thing.
The more you know.
And he's the one who's been playing longer. But anyway. So I think that's it for our very first podcast. We had a lot of fun talking to you. I'd like to give a huge shout out to our sponsors. So, a question that we have for you is, what's your favorite deck to play? And why is that? Is it because, you know, you're like me and Blake, where you really enjoy the art, you really enjoy the mechanic, you like to dick people over, I don't know. But let us know in the comments below. We also have a Twitter and email account. We would love to hear from you at any time. And Blake, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Just thank you for listening, and we hope to continue to make content long into the future that's entertaining for you all.
Yes. As much as I do not want you to have fun while playing Magic, I do really hope that you enjoy listening to our podcast. Alright. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye. And end.